Welcome to Your Health is Wealth podcast. The podcast invites you to embrace the profound truth that your health is your wealth. I'm your host, Kristen Burke. This podcast aims to take you on a journey into the landscape of alternative medicine, integrative practices, and holistic healing options that empower you to thrive in mind, body, and spirit. Today in our segment titled A Son's Tribute to His Mother's Parkinson's Journey, where we dive into an inspiring story of Sharon Riff Ackerman, her battle with Parkinson's disease, and the profound impact it leaves on the lives of the family and friends. In this episode, we'll explore the heartfelt journey of one man as he navigates the challenges of being a caregiver, an advocate, and a son, all while honoring his mother's courageous battle with Parkinson's. Parkinson's disease is a progressive neurological disorder that affects movement, causing tremors, stiffness, and difficulty with balance and coordination. But its impact extends far beyond the physical symptoms, touching every aspect of a person's life and the lives of their loved ones. As we delve into this episode, we highlight one story which represents many who experience the roller coaster of emotions, from moments of despair to glimmers of hope. As they confront the challenges of this relentless disease together, George not only provided care and support for his mother, but also became a passionate advocate, tirelessly raising awareness and funds to improve the lives of those affected by Parkinson's. As we listen to George's story, we'll witness the profound impact of his advocacy efforts, both before his mother's passing and now, as he continues to honor her legacy by championing the cause. Through his tireless efforts, George has become a beacon of hope for countless individuals and families affected by Parkinson's, shining a light on their journey and inspiring others to join the fight. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining episode 3 today. Please welcome my special guest, Dr. George Ackerman, Sharon's son, who is originally from Brooklyn, New York, and now resides in Florida, where he works in the areas of law enforcement, and education. George lost his mother on January 1st of 2020 due to Parkinson's disease. George wanted to honor his mother and continue to help with Parkinson's awareness. He and his family started Together for Sharon to keep his mother, Sharon Riff Ackerman's memory alive and share the message of Parkinson's awareness and hope for a cure. Today, Together with Sharon reaches thousands of individuals across the country to raise awareness of Parkinson's disease. George currently interviews individuals throughout the Parkinson's community, including various foundations, caregivers, and Parkinson's warriors, to help share their stories and causes. In addition to all of George's educational and professional accomplishments, he has recently published a book called A Son's Journey from Parkinson's Disease Caregiver to Advocate. So he can now add another accolade as an author of a book about Parkinson's. So if you're interested in ordering a copy of his book, we will provide a link in the podcast, and also George can talk about that at the end of the podcast interview. Thank you so much, George, for joining us today. For those who may not know, could you please explain briefly what Parkinson's disease is and how it could affect the body?
Yes, thank you for your time and your viewers. I don't do this for the accolades, so I also learn a lot from everyone I meet. And I always feel this is not just about a little talk. It's something that is a conversation that needs to continue until we find a cure. So thank you again. Unfortunately, my mother, like you mentioned, passed 4 years ago due to Parkinson. She had about 15 years. We didn't really know much about it. She didn't really want us to know. I think she didn't want to burden the family, or she might not have even realized, what it could do to a person, since it was such a shocking revelation when she was diagnosed. I only became involved the last 4 years because we tried everything, but finally she tried a special trial, and we think they might have changed her medication too drastically. And from the 4th year going down to her last days, it was a downhill struggle. That's when I took over, because I know that during her life, she sacrificed so much for me. raising me, giving up. She was a school teacher and had a master's and gave it all up to help raise me. So I knew that I'm not the man today if it wasn't for her sacrifices then. And I knew it was time to step up to make sure she was comfortable when she needed help. But Parkinson's, unfortunately, the leading fastest growing neurodegenerative disease in the world. It's not just the U.S. It doesn't discriminate. It can go, unfortunately, to anyone. At first, the signs were she had a lot of stiffness in her left arm. So for a few years, for several years, she lived independently. She shopped. She had friends. She went out. She walked a lot. But then, as time went on, it kind of gradually got worse. Parkinson's makes the body in a way stiff. You have stiff like the gait. But also, some individuals have external tremors, like the famous actor from Canada, Mr. Michael J. Fox. His is more, if you see, more noticeable. Some other individuals have internal tremors. So they still are feeling the same tremors, but not seeing. Also, something called dystonia, where your toes uncontrollably curl, and it's very frustrating. And also caused a lot of stomach issues because of a lot of the medicine. So, unfortunately, again, I keep saying that word, but it's not just one thing. Also, there's no cure because every individual is different, unique. They might have some similar issues like when they're diagnosed, but everybody has a different journey. I only speak about my mother and ours. I'm not a medical doctor, but I unfortunately had to be there and was honored to be by her side. But throughout her struggle, the sad news is, we didn't find a cure in time, but I do this today advocacy in her memory, but to fight for all those still battling Parkinson's and all their families who also have to go through it because Parkinson doesn't just affect the one individual, it affects the family, the community, and everyone around them. So we really need to end Parkinson, but being with you here today means the world because as you can see from the darkness comes light. People like you and your audience inspire me to keep fighting, even when some days it's not that easy.
Wow. Very inspiring. And I'm sure most parents would absolutely love to have that kind of support. Although we would hope it would be common from our children to take care of us. You have a big heart, and just so respect that and admire what you've done. So there's a couple of things. I'm curious, you were talking about the effects and how they can manifest differently depending on the person. Do you happen to know, is there multiple causes or is there one main cause, primary cause that they might be, meaning researchers, whether it's Western medicine or other types of medicine that they've identified?
As of today, no one really knows the meaning. They don't think it's genetics. Many agree, and I do, about the environment. My mother had a nice home in Florida, but it had mold over the years. It had termites, so we had people spray. Who knows what they put in that? But my mother passed at a young age to me at 69. And I feel like Parkinson took 15 years of her life living and an additional 15 years afterwards. But she had no medical issues her whole life. So that was it. Unfortunately, she also had late onset dementia, which on top of now the Parkinson's, again, also with Parkinson's, it's almost like your brain is telling or you're telling your brain to walk, but you're just frozen. So that's another, it's very frustrating. It's debilitating. It's 5 stages. As the stages get worse, it gets to the point even at number 3 or 4 where you no longer can walk or even work, both of those. So there's a lot of people I've actually met now in the community who actually had one gentleman I'm good friends with. He has Parkinson's, and his whole dream in life was truck driving, and he had to give it up, which broke his heart because he couldn't do it anymore due to the disease. But she also ended up towards the end having late onset dementia, and that brought in hallucinations and delusions. That's another entire podcast of how horrifying. It's almost like a horror movie because there was one time where my mother, I had to rush her to the hospital. It was the day we came back for the trial for Parkinson's. She tried everything. Finally, we decided to try a trial. We think they might have changed her medicine too drastically, but I got called to her house at 4 a.m., rushed over. She was moving her furniture out of her home. She said she was in fear that Nazis were inside and were going to harm her. And that's when I rushed to the hospital. They said we saved her life that night, but that was the night where everything started going downhill. And that's not even the worst part. I went back to her home to get her some clothes and around the whole room were Post-it notes, and on the Post-it notes were names of animals and people who no longer were alive, but the dementia didn't allow her to understand that. So she actually would tell me stories sometime that her parents were there, or a dog that had passed decades ago. And it was hard because you can't laugh, you can't agree, you don't giggle, it's not funny, but it's kind of an uncomfortable thing. You're not really sure, how to respond to that. And again, I never had a class on caregiving. I don't think you could take one to prepare yourself for that.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And so is the dementia aspect, is that common? Does that happen with all Parkinson's patients at a certain point? Or is there a way in some cases where that can be reversed? Have they seen any of that in any Parkinson's patients?
Yeah, not everyone gets dementia who has Parkinson's, and now we learn there are ways to kind of slow the progression, but we can't cure it. Some of the ways are exercise 45 minutes a day, how you eat, so the diet, and also, again, the big thing is really exercise, exercise, exercise. That's not even just for people with Parkinson's; it's also the caregivers and anyone. Unfortunately, there's a point where you have to make a choice. So I didn't do, in my opinion, and I don't regret anything because we tried everything accept the cure. But there were days as a caregiver and today as an advocate where I kind of burned myself out just because I didn't want my mother to feel alone. I didn't want her to feel uncomfortable. And it was when we were with her, she was okay, at least, but it was heartbreaking. Now, as an advocate, same thing. I feel like if we just reached one person today who wasn't aware of Parkinson's, then we've changed the world for the better. And sometimes it's hard to say no to, speak to people because I really enjoy it. It actually helps me too still cope because I'm still grieving even 4 years later. That's probably a big reason why I even started Together for Sharon, just because my mother and I felt alone and we didn't know there were other people out there. On togetherforsharon.com, you'll find many resources, people, and 600 interviews I've done around the world with advocates, people with Parkinson's, and it's all completely free. We don't accept money. We only accept that people know that they're never alone in this fight.
So, talking about the advocacy, you touched a little bit about the caregiving and the impact on you. Is there anything else that you want to share in regards to the impact on you and your family?
April was a tough month in a way, but an exciting one. It was Parkinson's Awareness Month. I always say Parkinson's awareness is every second until we find a cure, because it doesn't end after April. That's why we're here in May and we're still fighting. But I actually did, we went to the Michael J. Fox Foundation, had an IQ event in the community, so that was incredible. And I had an event, the Parkinson's Foundation Walk. We had a table there and just talked about my mother. And then I went to the American Parkinson's Disease Symposium, which was lectures and things for the community. Then we flew to New York last week. And unfortunately, I've been sick since then, even as we're filming. But, like that answers your question. I'm still dead of resting. I'm still out there fighting. But we had the honor to go to the New York City in Central Park. It was beautiful. I think they raised $2 million in 4 hours for Michael J. Fox Foundation. And I didn't know, but he showed up. So it's great to see him again. I've met him before. I actually got a picture of Katie Couric, which was amazing. And Muhammad Ali's daughter was there. So it was a full star-studded event, but it was really all there for one purpose, and that's to try to find the cure and end this disease forever.
And it just goes to show you that this disease, it can affect anyone at any walk of life. And the fact that you have advocacy through folks that have a lot of visibility, such as Michael J. Fox and Katie Couric and Muhammad Ali's daughter, is really amazing because they have such visibility where they can bring in more resources, money for research and or education, and support for families and for people who have the Parkinson's. You mentioned that you felt alone with your mom, and I would imagine that would be the case for most people who are not aware of these support groups. So the fact that you have developed the support group to reach out to others so that you don't have to experience the same things that you and your mom had felt is quite amazing. So obviously you've listed that there are some famous folks involved. Are there any governmental officials or legislators that are interested in supporting and helping with this?
And last December, before we saw that it's the first time, but it's the first time in U.S. history that they passed a bill through the House of Representatives, a bipartisan, called the National Plan to End Parkinson's Disease. It's going to the Senate. So you and your listeners can actually reach out, please, to your senators and urge them to support the National Plan to End Parkinson. We can't say that in a few years from now because hopefully it'll be passed, but or a few years back, we wouldn't be able to say we're part of history. So literally, as we speak, history is being made. I have had the honor. I've written to a lot of politicians, and I got lucky, I guess, that yeah, one of the United States House of Representatives, Paul Tonko, who's the lead in the actual bill. I did a podcast with him recently, and that was incredible to speak to an individual representative from New York City who actually was spearheading the push through the bill. Now it heads to the Senate. We're not sure if it's this year or next, but a week or two ago, I had the opportunity to interview United States Senator for Florida, Rick Scott, and that was exciting. So it shows that some are really gung ho and into the bill and want it to pass. Others are very difficult, and it's not easy to reach representatives because they represent so many people. But it was definitely an honor. And just the other day, actually, I have it here. The governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, provided this to me after like 8 months, and it's a proclamation to Parkinson's Awareness Month in Florida in my mother's memory. So I've been able to reach the city, the county, the state, and federal government. I actually wrote a letter the other day to the White House. So you never know, maybe because it's election that the president could possibly want to do a podcast. You never know. But I mean, you can't get further there. So we do need celebrities. We need athletes. We need politicians. And we need regular people because if we're not all together in this fight, then we're going to be further from a cure.
Agreed. And that is a testament to those folks who are getting involved and wanting to pass bills. And I'm assuming it's for not only awareness, but research funds.
Yeah.
Is
Mhm.
all of that?
Well, a lot of it's going to go towards research, toward awareness, towards helping people who are diagnosed with medicines, support for the caregiver. There is one area that I wish it did, but often find I'm actually writing another book already on it. I'm almost done, and it's called The Seat at the Table. And sometimes I feel, number one, my mother no longer has a seat at our table for holidays because Parkinson took her. But I also feel I'm not diagnosed and I'm not a caregiver of someone alive. So there's like tens of millions of people out there who've lost a loved one due to Parkinson, but many times I feel I don't have a seat at the table of the conversation because obviously the goal is to cure those who are fighting now and help their caregivers. But guess what? In my opinion, we got back all the millions of people who lost a loved one due to Parkinson to the table. We would have had a much stronger showing. So that's what the book will be about, the next one. And it's really important. It's a little controversial because I break the doors on the way down and speak about tough topics. But again, if we don't have these conversations, then we'll never bring change. And I feel my mother still matters and I still have a voice just because, unfortunately, just because she lost the battle and I'm no longer a caregiver of someone alive with Parkinson's is not a reason why we should all kind of fade away and just have no voice.
Speaking of awareness and education with the advocacy work, it sounds like the seat of the table is your key message, or do you have another key message that you hope to convey in regards to Parkinson's disease?
Yeah, my main objective and what I always fight for is that I have a statement I always say at the end, but I can do it now that we love you, we support you, we care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I will advocate for you, and together our voices are so much stronger. And I'm just getting started because every time I meet individuals like you, your audience, or someone battling the disease, kind of reignites me like a fire in my heart and makes me want to do more. So those are the reasons I do this. And the main goal, again, we don't accept money. We have a donation link on Together with Sharon, but it actually is the links from I think 4 or 5 organizations like Michael J. Fox where you can donate directly to them and had nothing to do with us, but it's in memory of my mother, which was really nice that they did that. So, again, it's funny, even 2024, I have to kind of explain that we don't want any money because everyone always thinks if you're doing something, sadly, that you want something in return, but that's not why I do this.
And that goes back to the big heart because you've been there
Yeah.
and you know what it's like. I was preparing for the podcast, I like to get an idea of how common this is, numbers. And I looked on the NIH, the National Institute of Health. They have one site, which I'm happy to share that link after. And basically, what they're saying is Parkinson's disease is the second most common neurodegenerative disorder in the US. And most people are diagnosed after the age of 60 and later. And they talk about approximately 500,000 Americans are diagnosed with PD or Parkinson's disease. But there's many that go undiagnosed because they may not be showing all the obvious signs. And so they think the actual number is much higher. Some experts think roughly 1 million of
Mm.
Americans. And so to me, obviously, if they're talking about it's the second most common neurodegenerative disease, and that affects our brain. And then I went further and looked, and they suspect some of the researchers think that there's a mind body connection with diet. And you talked about the exercise, how important that is because you're moving energy out of the body, right? They're also linking this to stress and environmental factors. And I think you said that they don't think that this is connected to a genetic link, which makes sense
Right.
because now we're discovering more and more diseases today. It really isn't a genetic link. It's more of an environmental factor and stress. And stress, there's different stats ranging from, I think, 60 to 90%, depending on the illness. And then I was really curious as to what the actual mechanism was. And it looks like it's an accumulation of some type of protein in the brain. Do you know anything about that part?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a medical doctor. I only can talk about what my mother and I saw, but I definitely, it's all about, dopamine, and you're not getting enough as you need to have a healthy, working neuron and brain. And I leave that for the scientists, but it's definitely something that is growing. I don't know, again, we started together for Sharon with, I said 3 or 4 people might see the website, and today over 40,000 have. I don't know if it's because of my work or is it sadly more people are, learning about it because now their family has it, they have it, their neighbors, the mailman, it's just growing. And I wish it wasn't. I wish we didn't have. I wish we met some other way. But unfortunately, again, till we find the cure, we have to keep fighting.
Agreed. Yeah, I think this is looking at some of the information that I came across. It looks like multiple areas are trying to work on it
Yeah.
from a different perspective, which is fantastic. And maybe they meet in the middle somewhere. Have you encountered any physicians or healthcare professionals that have considered holistic care, naturopathy, or any type of integrative medicine where they had the meeting of the minds for any type of treatment or prevention?
And my mother, we tried everything. We even had a license for medical marijuana for her, but it didn't really work. So we tried. My goal is that she was comfortable. But again, many doctors say you don't die of Parkinson's, you die with it. So when we were struggling, we had no clue that she was going to pass. And I was like, even now, I'm still shocked trying to figure out what happened. So again, I never looked back, but looking forward, you just have to keep hope that soon we'll have the cure. I remember reading somewhere back then when my mother was still with us that there was going to be a little pill. It was going to come out and it would go away. But every time we looked, it was 3 years, then five, then three, then one, then nothing. So I don't think that the biggest breakthrough last year was called a biomarker where Michael J. Fox Foundation has discovered a new technique where it's a giant needle in the spine, which I don't think anyone wants to do, but it could determine likely if you have Parkinson's, and that's important. So you can treat it and slow down the progression, not cure it. So that's like you mentioned, a little big problem is people are misdiagnosed, late diagnosed, or wrong diagnosed. So that really also can destroy the body and the mind if you're giving medicine and the person taking them, and they're not even for the right disease or thing. So it's pretty tough. And that's again why it's so hard to find the cure.
Yeah, until they can really start delving into the root cause instead of treating symptomology, I think that's where the progression would happen with any type of research. So, as far as the impact on you, what kind of support have you utilized as you were a caregiver, an advocate, but also afterwards when your mom passed? What type of support group did you lean on?
luckily I have my wife who's my hero too, and she tried her best, even when my mother was at her worst, to bring in like people to do her pedicure, manicure, her hair, just to make her feel like a person. Because unfortunately, again, my Parkinson's doesn't define a person, but it can take away their energy and their hope and their happiness. So anything we could have done to change that, she was incredible. And I have three children who loved their grandmother. And even today, it's hard to explain to them what happened or where she is. If you don't mind, though, I do have a little sentence or two I can read from the book. The book is important because I actually kept a journal the last year of my mother's life. It really takes you inside, look at a caregiver going through struggles and fears and hope. But this kind of sums up a little. This is June 20th, 2019. Mom wakes up every day saying sorry and mommy, mommy. She continues to plead, please, mom, talking to her own mother. But her mother, my grandmother Pauline, passed away decades ago. Delusions and hallucinations are taking over. So that's just a little piece, but uh, as a caregiver, son, or anybody, human being, it's just very difficult to see somebody not really understanding reality or what's in front of them. Right now, I see you. I know we're talking to an audience. I know where I am, and we can communicate. But at some point, if as it deteriorates the progression of the disease, the individual then can't speak at times. Very softly speaking, they lose their ability to move. To even she went from being very healthy and walking a few miles a week to the last 4 years she went to a cane for 2 years and a walker, then a wheelchair and then bed bound, and that was very very quickly in only a few years. So those are some of the things. But yeah, when you sit there and your mother or any loved one or friend or family member is struggling and they look at you and say, what's going to happen? Am I going to be here for her granddaughter's wedding? You can't lie, but there's not much you can say. You don't want to give false hope. I just held her hand and hoped that something would work out. It didn't. But at least, again, I knew she was somewhat comfortable with me, with her. We had at some point towards the end had to hire staff to watch over her because I didn't want her to fall. Then if she broke something, that would have been the end of everything. So we spent $12,000 a month for many months just to have the staff watch her around the clock. She didn't sleep well because of her stomach due to the medicine. So, like I said earlier, it just seemed to be like I was a nail with a hammer hitting me every time we tried something. I tried to break out of it and it's good things, and boom, right back down. And that was the last year. But the book is important because we never have the time to talk about some of these things, and also it has a lot of positives, like where I am today in advocacy, but also brings some of the tougher times. And sometimes I say skip the final chat, one of the chapters that says what she went through the last year, because it's like a roller coaster. And people like the happy tales. Also, there's a beginning, a middle, and end of life, and no one really ever wants to hear or talk about the end of life, which is a big problem because thankfully my mother was very, not selfless, but amazing, I guess, because she had a will plan. We didn't know she was going to pass, but she did the will. She had a power of attorney, which was me. We took care of all her, her and I took over everything, and she was more than happy to help. If you don't have that, like my father's very sick actually right now. He didn't do anything and he won't. He just refuses to. So it makes it much tougher on the family to even go to find your loved one if they're sick or even pass. My mother was a saint in that way because she always planned, and now that's how I am today. I even have my own funeral and things. I'm only 46, but it's all done for my family, so they don't have to worry afterwards.
That's a lot to take on.
Yeah.
But it's amazing that you had the mechanism of the book to take all those feelings and out of your body, right? That's important because otherwise when it gets stuck in your body, it can create other illnesses in your own self, right? With especially being you're an advocate, so you're around it all the time and see people at different stages of going through this.
Mhm.
And I can empathize with that and understand and potentially feel that it would feel hopeless, like you want to be able to fix it, right?
Yeah,
And
help. Yeah, we go through different stages: grief, anger. Even one time we swore we'd never put her in a home, and we didn't. There were days looked at my wife and said, I just can't do anymore. I don't know what to do. I'm not trained. So luckily we didn't do that, but that was one thing she swore, and we swore. But it's just not always, everyone can't do that. It's not easy.
yeah, there's no clear path on how to navigate through something like this. And what you have done is you've uplifted your mother's legacy through the book and through your organization to create that awareness for other folks that are new to that journey or who have been in it, who haven't had that support. And that's amazing with what you're doing. So that through your mom and her legacy, you're uplifting other people and helping them heal in some capacity, whether they're caregivers, they're family members who may not want to look at it. Not everybody has, everybody's different, right? With the way that they think and they move through life. Some people can deal with it head on, others just simply can't. So having that area, that avenue for them to have some area to be able to heal and have that support is amazing. Thank you for doing that. And there's obviously some positive memories that you have of your mom. Even amidst some of the challenges, like conversations, I've seen some of your pictures where you had your mom holding your children outside and enjoying being in the present moment, right? Where she was able to do that. Are there any positive memories or moments that you cherish, that come to your mind from time to time that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, I mean, if you can see over here, I think even the picture of the cover of the book was one of my favorite moments ever because it was at my wedding. We had the mother-son dance, and in those few moments, it was only a couple of moments. Parkinson didn't exist, and it didn't matter. And we were able to laugh, talk, and just dance together. That was really like one of the last times she was able to do all that. And tough when my kids finally get married one day, and she won't be there because of the disease. So that was one of the memories that I actually chose for the book because she was smiling and she almost like lit up the room, and it was just one of the best moments of my life. Sometimes it's even hard to talk about because I'm 6'2", 200 pounds in police, but I was a mama's boy. I'm proud of it. The sad thing is, it was my whole life. I was always speak to her like 20 times a day, just check in. And that was the hardest part, not just not having her, but not being able to call her and talk to her. And that's the part. Even today, it's not easy because things happen in life. Could even the book, and I can't tell her obviously. So, and I never plan on having a book. She's funny. If you'd known her, she would have said, "George, don't waste your time. Stay with your family." She was big into family and all, but she knows I wouldn't listen because it's important to keep fighting.
So she already knew.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that story. That's precious, precious time. And going through this experience, this is life-changing. And I would imagine often you have reflected back on previous times before it unfolded and during it, and even after now looking back. How has this experience shaped your perspective on life and relationships?
Yeah, I always think if you have family who are sick, hug them, be there for them, forget about the past. If you had a funny or nonsense kind of argument, just forget it because you don't know how much time you're going to have with your loved ones and the tough world out there. But you always have family and friends and things, and you have to just cherish every moment. I always say the only regret I have is that back then we didn't have this technology where everyone has podcasts, but I wish I had a chance to do a podcast with my mother before Parkinson, just about life. And now, even writing the book, luckily her sister is still with us. And I spoke to her a lot because I don't even know the history of my grandparents really, or there's just a lot of those types of history things that I wish I had written down or took video because it would have answered a lot of questions for my children and their future. But we didn't have this technology then. It would have been funny and fun and would have been something they can look back on, which even our podcast today or a talk, hopefully someday my kids will see it and remember that they should be out there fighting too for any disease. I want them all to end, not just Parkinson's.
Absolutely. We've seen an uptick in all different types of diseases, and hopefully there's some headway on that and helping people with mental health, which we know can be connected to all of this. So I'm curious, you have these initiatives, you have your advocacy, you've attended multiple events, other advocates. How can people get involved? What is the easiest way? Is it to go to your website? Is there another way that they can maybe even contribute to the cause itself if they're passionate about helping other people, or maybe they have a family member that's impacted?
Yeah, my Together Fisher are not an organization, it's just a website. I'm only one son who lost his best friend and mother to Parkinson, but if you go to the site, it provide many, many resources and areas to not just give hope, but to really feel and know that you're not alone. The 600 interviews are there. people like to, every day a new one comes up and it just inspires me every day. But you can definitely go to the website. There's a donation section where they can choose. I don't tell someone to donate specific people. And if you donate, it'll go in my mother's memory, but to the organizations. A lot of them do have programs. You'd have to go to their website. We start a support group once a month for people who lost a loved one due to any disease, because I don't see my research many out there for that. They might have them, but I couldn't find them. I went to several. One was for people with Parkinson's again. I didn't fit in. Some were for people living caregivers with Parkinson. I didn't fit in. So it's kind of like left out again. So there's a lot out there. You just have to reach out to your community. The best thing for me is social media. If you want to go to togetherforsharon.com, you scroll down a little, it looks like a Christmas tree. It's a tree link, and you can go right to all the social media. And if you add me, I'll add you right back. But I try to be on them 7 days a week. Sometimes it's overwhelming, but every time I go on and see somebody struggling, makes me want to fight even harder, even to my own health detriment. So, but yeah, there are people out there for everyone. And I think you can definitely find a lot of incredible resources for free Together for Sharon.
Let's talk about future goals. What are your long-term goals in advocating for Parkinson's patients and their families?
Yeah, we just released the book. I already have a follow-up done, and we're going to be releasing the 600 interviews in 4 books, I believe. Then I'm doing a children's book because I still have trouble again explaining what happened to my 3 kids. And then finally, might wrap it all up with a book that's going to change the world. It's actually about policing and Parkinson's. It's most academies. They mention Alzheimer's and dementia, but Parkinson's isn't even in there. So if you have, there's a lot we can get into here. We don't have, again, the time, but I always fear in my mind if somebody, an officer late at night, who knows where, pulls over someone and thinks they're drunk driving or drug DUI, but it happens to be they're just having, the external shaking. They didn't have a good day or medicines weren't working. That officer at night opens the window and they're shaking uncontrollably. It could end very bad. So I want every academy in the U.S. to add Parkinson's into their manual so that office trainees will be aware. So that's something that I'm going to probably try and finish this summer. That's going to change the world because I've spoken with the Michael J. Fox Foundation, and I believe that they said they might be able to help me if it comes out, sponsor a bill through the legislature of the United States and just bring it to the forefront and really make all emergency managers aware of people with Parkinson's, because right now I don't feel there's enough awareness for that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I know that you could even reach out to law enforcement who have drug recognition evaluation officers who they do medical, what we call medical rule outs. So evaluate someone that they might suspect is under the influence of a substance and determine it's actually a medical issue, like diabetes is one example where they can rule that out. Dementia and but educating on the Parkinson's, I think I agree. I don't remember that ever coming up with any form of training.
Mm.
So that's a great idea. How do you envision the future of Parkinson's care and support? Like in the
I
best
mean,
world.
I wish we could cure it, but we wouldn't need any of it. That's the real goal. But it's not easy because some people, don't live in the same state as their loved one. Others are busy with work, family, things. Some of them just can't see their loved one, don't want to remember them like that. So it's always changing. It's always new things. Like I said, when I meet people, individuals like you and your audience, I still learn a lot. Doesn't matter how much school you might have or I do. I still have a lot to still learn. And every time, the only journey that breaks my heart is the one that I'm not aware of. There's still people out there that we need. So I have a lot of work still to do.
What advice would you give others who are caring for loved ones that have Parkinson's disease, based on your own experiences?
You always have to take care of yourself. I didn't do it, but if you're not healthy, then you're not really helpful to your loved one. But like I said, I wouldn't have changed what I did because I wanted my mother to know that I was nearby and that if she was in fear or worried, that I'd be right there to kind of protect her. So, but you do have to take care of your own health. Even as an advocate, I don't do it again. I mean, we went crazy the month of April and now there's no more events, but I'm still doing a lot because this national plan has to pass. That'll change the world. But even if it passes, it doesn't mean we're done. Still no cure. So we have a lot of work still. But I find if we have more voices like yours and your audience together as a family, then we'll definitely get a cure much quicker than if we didn't work together.
And I 100% agree. Connection and networking is really the way to get that out. And I'll do my part the best that I possibly can and see if I can get connected with others that can also share that message as well.
I
So, how was it meeting Michael J. Fox, someone who's gone through this and also a huge advocate for others?
He's a hero of mine because he was diagnosed young onset, which he had in his 30s. People always have this misconception it's an old man disease, but it's not. Younger people get it, females get it, and we need more light shed on the females who have Parkinson. My mother had it tough because she didn't have a husband or a loved one, so I had to do everything to help. Some people do have a loved one, which is nice because they're always there and they can take care of them. But meeting him was a once in a lifetime thing. I don't know how I met him a second. That was by accident, but the first time I had a few moments with him, we talked. I told him about my mother. I gave him a band, and he actually in the picture together was wearing the Together for Sharon band, and told me he's a hero. We're raising a lot of money for him, over $15,000 in the last 4 years, and we won't stop till we find a cure. And he thanked me, but I could see it was like positive because it was meeting him, but negative because he was doing very bad. So, it's just tough because you're someone who has raised $2 billion for the cure and he's still struggling. So he is, imagine everyone else. And like I said, that means we're not done. We still have a lot more work to do.
And upon reading some of the literature, I've noticed that a lot of the times folks don't know they have it. And by the time they're diagnosed is when things start to manifest and go beyond a treatable point or potentially reversible point. Do you know of any possible screening options that anyone is trying to come up with to help catch it earlier?
Just the biomarker that we mentioned earlier, and they really
Okay.
want to take that and put in a regular needle, like a blood test, and have it in every doctor's office in the world. But I don't know how long. That's something that's major. That's a big step jump. So we have to do it slowly, but as long as we are working on it, maybe someday it'll come true.
Yeah, let's hope for that. Is there anything else that you want to bring up or touch on that we haven't covered during the interview?
No, I just really appreciate your time and your audience. It's so
Yeah.
fun to place a home at togetherforsharon.com to our recording, and I'll share it around the world. But if everybody out there listening, please support you and your show and share, share, and share. So it doesn't cost anyone anything, just really can change and save many lives. So grateful for your time and your audience. And I consider you all family because this is not something that is just, again, a quick talk and goodbye forever. This is something that needs to continue until we find a cure. So I send my love, support, and I want to make sure everyone knows you're never alone. Feel free to reach out. My email is on togetherforsharon.com. It's just togetherforsharon@gmail.com, and I'm always available to help in any way I can.
Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing your story today and your advocacy and the journey that you've experienced with supporting your mom during life and afterwards, and your family as well. Bless all of you and what you're trying to do to help others. You're an angel on earth helping others. We don't see this all the time, and hopefully, this continues to grow in all ways for people so that we can heal together. And I will absolutely be sharing the link to all of George's information for his book, for his website, social media, on the podcast, and also in the marketing that we send out as well. So I wish you well and thank you so much for joining me today. And
Thank
if you
you.
have updates and you want to come back, would love to hear them.
I appreciate it, and thanks for everything you do and your audience too. We love you all.
All right. Take great care. Thank you so much, George. We are interested in feedback on our episodes and learning what topics you may be interested in for future episodes. Please follow us on Instagram, Your Health is Wealth Podcast. Also, our website, yourhealthiswealth.com, and is spelled with a Z instead of an S for yourhealthiswealth.com. The link to the website is also found on the Instagram bio as well. On our website, we list the episodes And there is an online form where you can fill it out, share your feedback, ask questions, share input on future topics, and also contact us if you're interested in being featured on the podcast. Topic scope is related to health and wellness. Thank you very much for listening to our podcast today and look forward to more. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.